Who would have thought that half a century after the Roadster Register was disbanded, we would be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the club that was formed as a consequence, the National Street Rod Association. Whilst by no means a definitive history of the NSRA, as that would be impossible to achieve within the running time of little over an hour, this film has been compiled to give an overview of the evolution of the club. Understandably, footage from the early years is limited and not of the same quality as for more recent times, but we hope it will stir many memories for members of a certain age. It will also give younger members an insight into how things were back in the day. Deliberately, no names have been mentioned. It would be unfair to single out any individuals, as so many have played their part throughout the last 50 years. The 70s were the formative years of the NSRA, when, with no handbook to refer to, those behind the scenes had to forge the way ahead with nothing more than instinct to guide them. Amazingly, it didn't take long for the committee to discover what would ultimately become the spiritual home of not just the NSRA, but of UK hot rodding in general, Billing Aquadrome. On the Sunday afternoon of the NSRA Summer Fun Run in 1973, the show field boasted a display of 22 hot rods at Billing, a far cry from the numbers we're accustomed to seeing on show fields half a century later. A run to Stratford-upon-Avon was added to the calendar the following year, and that pretty much set the scene for the next few years, with association members also taking in a number of other rod runs and the custom car shows at Crystal Palace, Olympia and Alexandra Palace. A total of 161 people pre-entered the last fun run of the 70s at Billing Aquadrome, a sure sign that the NSRA was firmly established and had become a major driving force in the British rodding scene. Car-wise, quite a number of the rods in attendance in those early years were Model T4s. Understandably though, thanks to hot rodding resilience and ingenuity, British tin came to the fore. American-based bodies, even fiberglass replicas, were thin on the ground, and the likes of Ford Pops, Model Ys and Morris Minors soon took up the running. With scrapyards being commonplace and easily accessible, many other classic British cars soon became donor vehicles. Rover V8s, Viva and Triumph for front suspensions, and Jaguar for straight sixes and independent rear axles. Guidelines were starting to be adopted, and the NSRA was establishing a firm hold in readiness for moving into the next decade.
Sweet redemption, I will never let you down. Will it ever get sunny? Oh, I wonder, honey, baby, how you make me sway. You say you will, I'm calling your addictive brand. You say you will, yeah, I'm crossing the obsessive line. You say you will, I'm calling your addictive brand. affection and my safe protection. I will always be around. Will it ever get sunny? Oh, I wonder, honey. I'm tired of being in the line. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah. I'm causing the obsessive mind. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah. I'm causing the obsessive mind. Wasted all my money, all on you, honey. Baby, will you look my way? Been ditching all my bodies, failing all the studies. Baby, I am out to play. Give me your attention and your sweet redemption. I will never let you down. Will it ever get sunny? Oh, I wonder, honey. Baby, how you make me sway. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah. I'm causing the obsessive mind. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah. I'm causing the obsessive mind. Saw you rolling steady, took it kinda heavy. Baby, I'm a loving kind. Jaded loving hazard doesn't really matter. Baby, say you will be mine. Take my affection and my safe protection. I will always be around. Will it ever get sunny? Oh, I wonder, honey. I'm tired of being in the line. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah. I'm causing the obsessive mind. You say it will. I'm caught in your addictive brain. You say it will, yeah.
To mark the 10th anniversary of the NSRA, entry to the Billing Fun Run in 1982 was free to members. As that year marked the 50th anniversary of the 32 Ford, any non-members who arrived at Billing in a deuce were also let in for nothing. There was a further addition to the already busy NSRA calendar in 1985, the Farnborough Show. Whilst smaller than other events, this was still a success, with the NSRA donating £1,100 to various charities from the proceeds. The early part of the 80s saw the humble Ford Pop take on a new lease of life, with a couple of home-built, couped-bodied hot rods setting the tone for daring to be different. Whilst British-bodied cars were still highly prevalent, there was an ever-increasing number of American-bodied rods appearing on the scene. Occasionally, these were steel-bodied originals, but the vast majority were fiberglass replicas, thanks to the buoyant aftermarket industry that was experiencing considerable growth at this time. Whilst Model Ts, Model As and Deuces were the most common American-bodied hot rods in the UK in the 80s, a definite nod to other body styles could also be detected. A Chevy sedan featured in the list of top 10 winners at the Fun Run, as did a 55 Chevy. Elsewhere, the names of Plymouth and Willys were being bandied about. Times were changing indeed, even more so when the term Pro Street became far more commonplace towards the end of the decade. With concerns growing about the impact impending European legislation would have on hot rodding, the NSRA took a proactive approach of joining the Federation of British Historic Vehicle Clubs. A wise move, as legislation can bite at any time, and it was reassuring that the NSRA was prepared to stand up and make its voice heard. To close the 80s with a bang, yet another event appeared on the NSRA calendar: the Hot Rod Drags at Long Marston Raceway.
track not up to its use. Bit of a sticking at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what sort of time it does put down. Oh, it'll be up there later on, give it a thought total. Right, two to four, we've just had Dave Graham's crewman up here. Charlie's back around with us, is our John body car of St. Charles. You've got some information on this car, don't we have a shape of good playing work.
The 90s carried on from where the previous decade had finished, with not one, but two further additions to the calendar. The first came in March, the swap meet at Reading University, and the second in July, the pre-49 day, which took place at the National Motor Museum, Bewley. Both proved a success, which is why both events are still going strong today, albeit at different venues. The second staging of the Hot Rod Drags in 1990 was also at a new venue, only it wasn't. The track had been renamed Avon Park Raceway, but it was pretty much the same place though. It was, however, 1991 that would herald the most significant addition to the event calendar since inception of the NSRA. The inaugural Hot Rod Super Nationals took place in August in the grounds of Nebworth House. The weekend was an instant hit and immediately became a must-do event, not least of all because one participant will go home with the giveaway hot rod. It was all about trading places in 1993. In March, the swap meet moved to Whitewatham Airfield near Maidenhead as it had outgrown the Reading University facilities. Spawned from a deal struck with the winner of the first ever NSRA giveaway car, a second such event appeared on the calendar, the Northern Swap Meet in November. The following year saw yet another addition to the calendar with the first staging of the Nostalgia Nationals at Avon Park Raceway in 1994. This was pretty much the format for the remainder of the 90s, and with half a dozen popular events on the calendar, the NSRA had established itself as the major force in UK hot rodding in the run-up to the turn of the century.
first run up the strip, so be gentle with him. Victor. Somerset. Ready to run, Martin Holgate in the famous paranoia Jack Powell has been running metronome in here in Wildwood Strip and looking to sell the car on. He wants running on the 8 only, and a pair of side-by-side of 38.89 miles down the left lane, 40.95 miles an hour in the right lane. No idea how old that person is in that car, but if they're only sort of 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, driving cars at 40 miles an hour now, that was for sure. Surprising to break. Hang on a minute, let's get him on there. What do you reckon to these juniors then? Have a look at this. Well, the national pre-race range check, we always find room at the top rows at our events when... sixth field leader here this weekend last year on the lead of Euro final.
The new century for the NSRA kicked off in March with the swap meet, which by then was in its second year at the Arena Essex. Unlike the previous staging, this time around the sun shone and so did the grins of everyone in attendance. Whilst not an NSRA event per se, in 2001 the NSRA were the hosts of the ESRA Euronats. A few days at the seaside was deemed the order of the day, with Butlins in Bognor Regis being the resort of choice. What a great event that turned out to be. The first major change to the actual NSRA event calendar in the 21st century was inflicted by pop star Robbie Williams in 2003. Money talks, and having a far bigger wad than the NSRA, good old Robbie secured the booking of Nebworth House for a concert on what would have been the Supernats weekend. The most prestigious hot rod event in Europe moved up the A1 to Old Warden Park, and what a surprise bonus that turned out to be. Almost 20 years later, the Supernats is still being held at Old Warden. Hey, thanks Robbie. In 2005, the pre-49 day made a comeback, only now it lasted a whole weekend. Driving was the order of the weekend, and the base for that year was a caravan park in Cleethorpes. The following year, the pre-49 weekend was based near Newquay. In 2007, it was in the Lake District, and in 2008, it was in Old Hunstanton in Norfolk. That proved to be the last pre-49 weekend of the noughties, but it was destined to return a few years later. NSRA Euronats once again returned to the UK in 2010. This time round though, it wasn't a standalone event. Instead, it became an extension of the Hot Rods Super Nationals, with the gates opening for the Euronats participants from the Wednesday onwards. When the gates opened for regular Super Nats participants on the Friday, the site was already pretty full of hot rods. Perfect. The 40th Fun Run at Billing was marked in 2012 with a marquee housing a number of historic vehicles from over the years. Unfortunately, the weather gods didn't look kindly on us this particular anniversary, with heavy rain falling for a number of days leading up to the weekend. And we all know what it's like at Billing when the rain falls. The pre-49 event was back with a vengeance in 2013 as the Rodders set out, hopped on the train and headed off through the Channel Tunnel to France. Meanwhile, back in the UK, changes were afoot with regard to venues for a few of the NSRA well-established events. The Fun Run moved to the seaside at Great Yarmouth in 2017, where it resided for a couple of years. In 2018, both the Nostalgia Nationals and the Hot Rod Drags were relocated to Santipod following the demise of Shakespeare County Raceway, as the track had been renamed a few years previously. With the Arena Essex being sold for redevelopment, the swap meet travelled along the M25 to North Weald Airfield in 2019, whilst later that year the Fun Run moved more centrally in the country to Rutland Showground. COVID then hit, and the 2020 swap meet was followed by a restricted numbers Super Nats in 2021. Work continued behind the scenes though, with both virtual events and planning for the future.
you with this?
Still can't believe it's there and it's real.
Well, I tell you what, it is just a fantastic machine. Long may you continue to win.
What a 50 years this has been for the NSRA. From less than a couple of dozen cars at the first fun run to a membership approaching 2,500. That is quite some achievement. As stated at the outset, this film is merely a snapshot of the last half a century. The people, the cars, the venues, the ups, the downs, the laughter and at times the tears all hold some amazing memories for so many people. All those who have played a part, however small, should feel really proud to have been part of it. Whether you helped out or you just turned up and enjoyed yourself doesn't matter. You were there and that's what really counts. Sadly, not all of those involved can be with us to share this golden anniversary. Before we go, let's spend a few moments of reflection remembering the NSRA members who are no longer with us. We salute you all.